Hello, and welcome back to Grass Types, the show where you learn to identify plants and maybe some other cool things along the way. This time, we are going to attack a funny-looking native plant called Dutchman's Breeches. Its scientific name is Dicentra cucullaria. Di means two, centra means spur, and cucullaria means hooded. This all refers to the flower structure, which we will be getting into later. Dicentra cucullaria belongs to either the Fumariaceae, the fumitory family, or the Papaveraceae family, the poppy family, under the subfamily Fumarioideae, depending on which resource you use. Fumitory plants are generally plants with small white, yellow, or pink tubular flowers on a spike or raceme and heavily divided grayish leaves. Another plant species in this family closely related to Dutchman's breeches is bleeding heart, Lamprocapnos spectabilis, a popular ornamental plant originally from Asia. Carl Linnaeus first named this species and Johann J. Bernardi, alive from 1774 to 1850, placed it in its current genus. Bernardi was a German botanist who collected over 60,000 plant species from several continents. His collection is the foundation of the Missouri Botanical Garden Herbarium. You can find this perennial plant blooming in early spring from April to May. They bloom for about 2 to 3 weeks before they produce seed, and after that die off above ground while the root goes dormant for the year. They grow in shaded, rich woods with a preference to undisturbed areas in the upper Midwest and northwestern parts of the U.S. According to a study carried out in the Chequamegon-Nicolet Forest in Wisconsin, they are negatively correlated with earthworms. As in, the more exotic earthworms there are, the less Dutchman's breeches plants there are. The inflorescence or flower structure takes the form of a raceme, which means unbranched and indeterminate. The flowers are attached to a pedicel, in comparison to a petiole on a leaf, which are attached to the peduncle or the main stem of the raceme. The pedicel has 2 small bracts on it. The flower itself has 4 petals in groups of 2. The 2 outer petals are white, large nectar spurs connected at the base, which are hollowed extensions of the flower, often containing tissues producing nectar. The 2 small petals are yellow and somewhat cover up the 2 stamens and pistil. Overall, the flower looks like a pair of upside-down breeches, giving this plant its common name. They wilt very fast if you pick them, so I wouldn't bother trying to take them home with you for a vase. One study found that the main pollinator of Dicentra cucullaria is Bombus bimaculatus, or the 2-spotted bumblebee, specifically queen bees, surprisingly. Usually it's the worker bees' food, while the queen bees focus on reproduction. Other pollinators were found to be ineffective at pollination in this study. There are usually 2 basal leaves per stem. The stem is glabrous, meaning smooth, with a somewhat reddish-purplish color. The leaves themselves are ternately compound, meaning it consists of 3 leaflets. Each leaflet is divided further into 3 secondary leaflets. These secondary leaflets are even further divided into linear or oblanceolate lobes. The leaves are glaucous in color, meaning they are pale gray or bluish gray. The plant grows about 1 foot tall. The fruit is in the form of a capsule about a ½ inch long that tapers at both ends. It will eventually split in 2, releasing the seeds. These seeds have a lipid or fatty structure on them called an elyosome. Ants really like these elyosomes and will take them back to the nest to eat them. After eating the elyosome, they discard the seed in the waste area of their nest, where it can grow into a fully developed plant. This mutualistic relationship between ants and plants is called myrmecochory, a type of animal seed dispersal. The root is in the form of small bulblets in a white or pink to red color. There are a few species that I think might be confused with Dutchman's breeches if you only have the leaves to go by, one in particular. If you have the flowers, you won't have any trouble. I'll go over these 3 species now. The first is easily the hardest and probably near impossible to distinguish just based on leaves. It's called Squirrel Corn Dicentra canadensis. According to Illinois Wildflowers, it might be possible to tell the basal leaves apart of squirrel corn as they tend to have a bit longer lobes on average. Dicentra canadensis and Dicentra cucullaria can be found growing right next to each other. Luckily, the flowers, though both white, look easily different. Dicentra canadensis flowers look like white bleeding hearts and don't have the breeches appearance. They are scented, unlike Dicentra cucullaria, and will start blooming about 1 week later in comparison. The bulb colors can be compared as well. Dicentra canadensis has yellow bulblets, which is where the name squirrel corn comes from, while Dicentra cucullaria has white to pinkish bulblets. Thankfully, these two species don't seem to hybridize. The second plant I thought it might be confused with is pale Corydalis sempervirens. The leaves have fatter, fewer, and shorter lobes than that of Dicentra cucullaria, and once again, the flowers are going to be very different. The last plant I thought looked similar is Dicentra passiflora, based on the leaves. However, Dicentra passiflora, from what I can tell, has thinner and more separated lobes than Dicentra cucullaria. Again, the flowers will be distinctly different. Their ranges may not even overlap. Did you notice earlier that Dutchman's Breeches has a separated range? Some have noted that the western populations can have slightly coarser growth and in the past might have been classified as a separate species, Dicentra occidentalis. Most list these two as the same species now, though. Apparently, they have been geographically separated for over 1,000 years. Pretty cool. One reason that this family is listed in the poppy family sometimes is because members of the fumitories contain certain alkaloids that are also in poppies. In Dicentra cucullaria, cryptopine and protopine were both present, which are both found in opium poppies. These are where this plant gets another of its common names, little blue staggers, from, because apparently it has induced a drunken staggering effect on cattle that have grazed on it. However, most of the time wildlife know to avoid eating this plant. Sources that I've read have said that it has been used by Native Americans and others for different medicines. These sources also say to not consume it. So that's it for Dutchman's Breeches on today's episode of Grass Types. Thanks for watching, and be sure to join us again in the next ID battle. Someone should make me some of this stuff.